India's Supreme Court has begun hearing challenges to a new law that expands state control over charitable buildings used by Muslims. The law, called the Waqf Amendment Bill, was introduced by India's Hindu nationalist government. Muslims have been protesting, saying it leaves mosques and other religious buildings vulnerable to demolition or confiscation.
What started as a peaceful protest erupted into deadly violence. Thousands of West Bengal residents are fighting back against changes to a decades-old law, further deepening divides between the country's Hindu population and Muslim minority. Angry residents smashed and torched their way through one city, leaving destruction and an overturned police vehicle in their wake. Earlier this month, India's parliament passed a controversial bill which changed how Muslim properties will be governed. The properties such as mosques, religious schools or madrasas and thousands of acres of land fall under Waqf law. They are managed by a Muslim board and are used by the Muslim community. There are almost 900,000 of these properties across India, some dating back centuries, worth an estimated $14 billion. They cannot be sold or used for anything other than charity or religious purposes. Some of the controversial amendments include the appointment of non-Muslims as Waqf board members and mandatory registration of properties. The government says the change will root out corruption and create accountability on the boards.
We need to throw out those people who steal Waqf properties. In the name of Waqf, people who lease out properties for individual gains for hundreds of years, they need to be caught.
But opponents of the bill fear the new law will give the Hindu national government greater control over Muslim properties, especially at a time when Muslims say that they've been marginalised and have come under more aggressive attacks since Modi came to power. For now, paramilitary forces have been rolled out in several states in an attempt to prevent more violent protests.
For more on this, we're joined now by DW correspondent Shalu Yadav in Delhi. Shalu, what exactly does this law mean for India's Muslim community?
Well, Terry, for the Indian Muslim community, I mean, they are very clear that they are seeing this as an infringement or an undermining of their rights. They say that this amendment to the law brings more power to the Hindu nationalist government to meddle in the management of their religious affairs, something that has been guaranteed to all religions in India under the constitution. Now, Terry, there are over 800,000 properties that are registered under the Waqf board in India, and they are worth billions of dollars. And out of those, 70,000 properties are in direct dispute with the government over ownership. Now, the worry amongst the community is that this new amendment says that there will be two non-Muslim members as part of the Waqf Management Board, as well as a government-appointed official on the ground who will have the power to decide in the end where the disputed land goes. And they say that their chances of getting a fair judgment on that is pretty thin because they say that the government official is obviously going to decide in favor of the government. The opposition parties who voted against this amendment in the parliament last week, they have called this a particular act by the government as anti-democratic, anti-secular, and an assault on the constitution of this country. And they say that this is meant to torment the Muslim community of India. They didn't just stop there. The opposition leader Rahul Gandhi even went ahead to say that the similar thing can happen to other minority religions like Christians, and the government can go after the religious properties like churches. So there is a fair bit of concern, not just amongst Muslims, but amongst other minority communities in India, Terry.
Now, the government, on the other hand, argues that the law is needed to bring more transparency into the management of Waqf properties. Why does the government feel that's necessary?
Because there have been instances in the past of corruption in the management of Waqf properties. Now, these properties are only meant to be used for religious and charitable purposes, but there have been instances where Waqf members have been accused of selling this off to third parties for profit purposes. Also, historically, many properties were given over to Waqf just by an oral declaration or just by following the cultural, customs on the ground that was validated by the Waqf. Now that can no longer happen. Now the government mandates that they have to have proper paperwork to show the ownership of particular properties. So this is what the government's argument is, that it wants to stop practices like these. And they say that this is actually for the betterment of the Muslim community. But the Muslim community says that there is a huge trust deficit when it comes to this government's attitude towards the minorities, because they are quoting instances in the past. The fact that the autonomy of India's only Muslim minority state of Kashmir was taken away a few years ago. Then there was the Citizenship Amendment Bill that affected the community, and instances like building of a grand Hindu temple over a raised mosque, which was, by the way, sanctioned by the Supreme Court of India. So given this background over the last few years of this government being in power, the Muslims have a major sort of trust problem with this government, if I may. And this is the reason why we are seeing them knocking the doors of Supreme Court today.
Shalu, if you can, just briefly tell us what happened at the Supreme Court hearing today.
So, Terry, there were over 100 petitions that went into the court challenging this amendment, and many of them were from the politicians themselves. And the task of the Supreme Court is to decide whether this law infringes on the fundamental right to freedom. And there are many, articles in the Constitution that were quoted by the petitioners. Let me just say out loud some of them to you. Article 14 of the Constitution that guarantees equality before law. 15, which prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion, and Article 26, most importantly, which confers every religious denomination the right to manage its own affairs in matters of religion. So this is very crucial, because the petitioners are saying that this law is in direct violation of articles that are stated in the Constitution. The court resumes tomorrow on the matter. We'll see, Terry.
Shalu, thank you very much. That was DW correspondent Shalu Yadav in Delhi.